Let's dive into the global high school cafeteria of international politics, where every nation is trying to find its place at the table, and alliances shift as quickly as lunchroom gossip. The US has long been the quarterback, calling the shots and setting the pace for the rest of the world, using its economic and military might to influence global rules and norms. Meanwhile, India is the ambitious new kid, eager to prove itself, brimming with potential, and determined to carve out a bigger role on the world stage. With a booming population and a rapidly growing economy, India is no longer content to sit on the sidelines. And then there's China, which has built its own table entirely, creating new institutions, forging its own alliances, and challenging the old order with its economic power and technological advancements. The drama really heats up when America, feeling its dominance threatened, pressures India to play by its rules, expecting loyalty in a world that's becoming more multipolar by the day. At the same time, China is rolling out the red carpet, offering India business-friendly deals, investments, and a chance to be part of its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. This isn't just about abstract foreign policy debates, it's about the phone in your hand, the clothes you wear, and the prices you pay for everyday goods. The choices these countries make ripple through the global economy and affect all of us. As the US tries to contain China's rise, India finds itself in a tough spot, caught between two giants, each pulling in a different direction, and each offering both risks and rewards. It's like your best friend getting into a fight with someone you rely on every day. Suddenly you're forced to pick sides, even though you wish you could just get along with both. The US demands unwavering loyalty, but India sees opportunity in China's vast market and investment potential, making the decision far from simple. The old narrative of democracy versus communism doesn't capture the full picture. In reality, the lines are blurred, and countries act out of self-interest more than ideology. Economics is messy, complicated, and full of trade-offs. Every decision has winners and losers, and the outcomes are rarely black and white. American trade policies like tariffs and sanctions have hit India hard, forcing it to rethink old alliances and look for new partners to secure its growth. While Washington plays hardball, Beijing becomes increasingly important to India's economic future, offering alternatives that are hard to ignore. As US pressure, perhaps unintentionally, pushed India closer to China, reshaping the balance of power in Asia, India is learning to walk a tightrope, leveraging the rivalry between superpowers to extract the best deals and assert its own interests. This is a story of pragmatism over ideology, where strategic decisions matter more than lofty ideals. India isn't just getting pushed around, it's forging its own path, asserting its independence, and showing the world that it can be a major player in its own right. Welcome to the Great Power Shuffle, where every move counts, and the stakes couldn't be higher for the future of the global order. Let's talk about the squeeze. Trade wars aren't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, they're about real people, real businesses, and the delicate dance of international diplomacy. When tariffs enter the picture, the pressure isn't just economic. It's political, emotional, and deeply personal for those involved. America First wasn't just a slogan, it was a seismic policy shift that sent ripples across the globe. The US signaled it would prioritize its own interests, even if it meant ruffling feathers with longtime partners. The US began a global trade shakedown, and India, as a rising economic power, found itself squarely in the crosshairs. Suddenly, the rules of engagement were changing, and India had to adapt quickly. The Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP, was revoked, stripping India of key trade benefits. This move hit Indian exports hard, especially small and medium businesses that relied on US markets. Tariffs on steel and aluminum soon followed, escalating tensions and making it more expensive for Indian manufacturers to compete globally. The cost of doing business with America was rising fast. India retaliated with its own tariffs on American products, turning what started as a trade spat into a full-blown economic brawl. Everyday goods became more expensive, and uncertainty loomed over both economies. For India, this was a massive headache. Policymakers scrambled to find solutions, but the diplomatic fallout was hard to contain. The Biden administration softened the tone, promising a more collaborative approach. But beneath the surface, the core issues, market access, regulatory standards, and fair competition, remained unresolved. The concept of friendshoring was introduced, encouraging supply chains to move to trusted partners like India. but aligning with U.S. standards came at a cost, requiring new investments and compliance measures. Negotiations stalled over agriculture and intellectual property rights, with both sides unwilling to budge. These sticking points made progress slow and frustrating. A trust deficit emerged, forcing India to rethink its options. The sense of partnership was replaced by caution and calculation. The American squeeze created cracks in the relationship, exposing vulnerabilities and testing the limits of cooperation. India began to look east, not out of love, but out of necessity. Diversifying partnerships became a strategic imperative, even if it meant working with rivals. The message from Washington was clear: you're either with us or against us. The pressure to choose sides was unmistakable. For India, the question became, what's in it for us? Navigating this new world order meant weighing every decision carefully, balancing national interests with global realities. Now let's turn to the dragon, China. India's relationship with China is like being roommates in a Cold War. The Galwan Valley clash was a brutal reminder of their border dispute. Yet economically, China is India's manufacturing backbone. India has tried to decouple, but breaking up with a major supplier is tough. Politically and militarily, they are rivals, but economically intertwined. When the US applied trade pressure, India couldn't shut the door on China. Indian politicians talk of boycotting Chinese goods, but trade continues. This balancing act defines India's relationship with China. China holds a powerful lever of influence over India. Let's get into the numbers. The US was India's largest trading partner, but the gap with China is closing. In 2023 to 24, India-US trade was $118 billion, with America as a top export destination. Meanwhile, India-China trade hit $114 billion, revealing India's vulnerability. India has a trade surplus with the US, but a massive deficit with China. India imports critical goods from China, creating dependency. US trade pressure creates headlines, but China's economic pull is stronger. Efforts to curb this dependency have been slow. India is boosting domestic manufacturing, but it takes time. The data shows the US is an important customer, but China is indispensable. Disruption in trade with China could cripple India's economy. This asymmetry gives China leverage. New Delhi knows its economic fate is tied to China. The numbers don't lie. China's pull is undeniable. How do you manage a relationship with a country that's both a threat and a supplier? Since the 2020 border clash, India's diplomatic stance with China has been icy. India has bolstered its military defenses, projecting strength. Yet, economic engagement continues, driven by necessity. Indian manufacturers rely on Chinese goods to stay competitive. The government faces a dilemma: reduce dependency or risk economic fallout. This bifurcated policy shows toughness on security, but pragmatism in trade. US trade pressure makes China's economic proposition more stable. India must maintain a hard line on the border while keeping economic channels open. It's a dangerous, exhausting, and necessary performance. Look at BRICS to see this dynamic play out. BRICS expanded in 2023, becoming a real geopolitical force. China led this transformation, aiming for a multipolar world. India supported the expansion, enhancing its global standing. By being a key player in BRICS, India shows it has options. It's a strategic hedge against Western pressure. India practices strategic autonomy, making choices based on its interests. BRICS talks of trade in local currencies, bypassing Western systems. For India, building alternative structures is smart planning. India and China find common cause in challenging the global order. To understand a country's direction, listen to its leaders. Modi emphasizes shared values with the West, but Jaishankar speaks of multipolarity. India asserts its right to make independent choices. China frames the relationship in terms of Asian solidarity. They want trade to continue, despite security issues. Official statements are diplomatic code. India says the border must be fixed first. China disagrees. The US praises its partnership with India, but continues trade pressure. Leaders speak different languages, reflecting national priorities. India's actions, trade with China and BRICS embrace, speak louder than words. Welcome to the Great Indian Hedging Game, a complex, high-stakes contest where every move is calculated and every alliance is weighed with caution. In today's turbulent world, India isn't simply choosing between the US and China. Instead, it's boldly choosing its own path, prioritizing national interests above all else. The era of black and white foreign policy is over. Now, India's approach is multifaceted and diversified, engaging with a wide array of global players to maximize its options. India invests heavily in its partnership with the US, especially in technology and defense, but it also maintains strong ties with non-Western platforms like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This nuanced strategy is rooted in a deep skepticism of great power politics, shaped by decades of experience and observation. India has learned from history that alliances, no matter how promising, are often temporary, and can shift with changing global dynamics. Recent US trade pressures and disagreements only reinforce India's belief that it must remain flexible and self-reliant, never putting all its eggs in one basket. That's why India conducts military exercises with both the US and China, signaling its intent to engage with all major powers while keeping its options open. India's defense procurement is equally pragmatic. It buys advanced American drones yet continues to rely on Russian and Chinese components, ensuring no single supplier holds all the cards. Every diplomatic and military action is designed to maximize India's leverage, minimize vulnerabilities, and keep adversaries guessing. The ultimate goal is to buy precious time to grow its economy, modernize its military, and build the infrastructure needed to become a true global power. India knows it cannot afford a direct confrontation with China, nor can it risk becoming subservient to the US. It must chart its own course. By playing both sides, India extracts benefits from all partners, while skillfully avoiding binding commitments that could limit its freedom of action. This is a high-risk, high-reward strategy, a diplomatic tightrope walk where a single misstep could have serious consequences. If India succeeds, it could emerge as a powerful third pole in a multipolar world, shaping global events rather than merely reacting to them. But if it fails, India risks being caught in the crossfire between rival superpowers, with little room to maneuver. India's ambition is clear: to be a decisive player, not just a pawn, on the global chessboard. The age of picking a camp is over. For India, the future lies in building its own camp, one that reflects its unique interests, values, and aspirations. Has US trade pressure pushed India closer to China? The answer is complex. It's not about friendship, but independence. The American squeeze accelerated India's independent foreign policy. India asks, who can we truly rely on? The answer is ourselves. This is the New Delhi doctrine: pragmatism over ideology. India engages with the US on security while working with China in BRICS. It's a foreign policy of a rising power charting its own course. India's future will be a zigzag of calculated maneuvers. It will be a critical partner for the US, but on its own terms. The new India is here, answering to no one but itself.